Hello. Given the current questions and the increased migration of South African taxpayers, this is a necessary and highly topical subject for practitioners. The challenge is that remote work has outpaced tax legislation and administration globally, creating complex issues involving tax residence, source rules, pay-as-you-earn withholding, permanent establishment, social security obligations, exchange control, and double taxation agreements. For South African tax practitioners, we propose to position the webinar as a practical advisory session rather than a technical tax lecture, focusing on identifying risk and implementing solutions. This webinar is about navigating tax implications of remote work for South Africans, which will be held on the 24th of August 2026 at 3 p.m. For many of you who know me, I've been around since before SARS changed the legislation in 2020, focusing specifically on helping South Africans who live and work abroad to remain compliant with their obligations towards SARS. Over the many years that we've been doing this now, the one lesson that keeps on popping up in front of me and that keeps on, it seems to me, confuse my colleagues in South Africa is the difference between a resident taxpayer and a non-resident taxpayer. The irony is, South African law has a very clean and neat definition for what makes you a resident as a taxpayer in South Africa. However, there is no definition in law for a non-resident, which causes all the confusions and complications for my colleagues and tax practitioners. Why don't you attend the session and we will explore and explain all the complexities and the nuances of whether you work remotely, whether you emigrate from South Africa, or whether you are just an expatriate that's outside the country for a few years, or even if you're a South African who works for a South African entity outside of South Africa. We look forward to seeing you and answering all of your questions during that day. The session will be held live. In other words, you can ask your questions during the session and we will be answering it during the session. Thank you and welcome to everyone joining us in advance.